Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video. This week, it's an AFC clash with the Baltimore Ravens when they meet the Miami Dolphins. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party, TNF Tonight, presented by Verizon. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial. It's the Ravens and Dolphins, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
This is part 2 of a 2-part series. If you have not listened to part 1, you should start there. It's ironic that John James Audubon's legendary book, Birds of America, had to take flight abroad in Europe. But eventually, scientists in the United States realized just how important the book was. So much so that, in Philadelphia, the Academy of Natural Sciences once again began debating whether to admit Audubon as a member. He had already been rejected once, thanks to the machinations of George Ord. But by September 1831, the Academy realized that it was embarrassing itself by denying Audubon. Ord happened to be absent from that month's meeting, so the other members voted Audubon in. Equally gratifying, they voted to subscribe to his book. They were now effectively paying him to be a member. And before long, Audubon's canonization was underway. He eventually became the most famous ornithologist in history. Even by 1850, a history book named him one of the 12 most illustrious Americans since George Washington. And it had all started with the iconic Bird of Washington, the bird that had stirred so many subscribers' hearts in England, including the King's. Even more than the bald eagle, the Bird of Washington became a symbol of America then. People wrote paeans to it. One read, "From every deep grove, the birds of America will sing Audubon's name, and the Bird of Washington, from his craggy home, will scream it to the tempests and the stars." The only thing was, the Bird of Washington did not exist. It never had, outside Audubon's imagination. And given how it launched his career, it might be the most successful fraud in art and science history. From the Science History Institute, this is Sam Keene and the Disappearing Spoon, a topsy-turvy, science-y history podcast, where footnotes become the real story. Birds of America was one of the most expensive books ever printed. Subscribers paid $1,000 each. That's more than $32,000 today for one book. At 435 pages, that's roughly $75 per page. And the book didn't even come assembled. Subscribers simply got batches of 5 pages at a time. Each batch had one large species of bird, one medium species, and 3 small ones. Then they had to sew the 435 pages together themselves, or send everything to a bookbinder at their own expense. The book cost so much in part because Audubon decided to use so-called double elephant pages. These were sheets more than 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide, the largest paper available then. This allowed Audubon to show the birds at life size, even turkeys and flamingos. He could also show them in their natural habitats, with trees and rocks and water around. The Bird of Washington appeared on page 11. It was the species that most birders no doubt turned to right away, the one that sent tingles down their spines. What a majestic creature. Except when naturalists went looking for it in the wild, no one could find one. To be sure, Audubon had said that they are rare, and country folk did report spying one here and there. But with such a large eagle, you would think one would turn up somewhere. This lack of specimens actually violated scientific standards then. Before a species counted as new, naturalists had to deposit a specimen in a museum. That way colleagues could examine it and check the claims for it. Now, given the difficulty of travel then, Audubon's supporters in England had let that standard slide originally. They took Audubon's word that he had a bird of Washington back in Kentucky and would deposit it at a repository museum in Philadelphia. But Audubon never did this. That began to worry ornithologists. One was William Swainson, who had effectively been bribed to write a rapturous review of Audubon's work, the one that begged others to subscribe. Swainson feared that he had let his enthusiasm for Audubon's art cloud his judgment about Audubon's science. And even beyond the lack of a specimen, Swainson and colleagues noticed things about Audubon's claims that just didn't add up. For one thing, a caption written on the Bird of Washington painting said it was male. But when Audubon had exhibited the piece in Liverpool, the accompanying catalog said it was female. Was this a simple mistake? Or could he just not keep his story straight? There was also the sheer improbability of every other ornithologist in America missing this giant bird before Audubon. Swainson realized that the only proof this bird existed was Audubon's painting and a few anecdotes from his friends. Then, in 1830, a rumor set Swainson's mind at ease. He heard that someone had finally deposited a specimen of the Washington eagle in Philadelphia. What a relief. Except, Swainson did not know the full story. In truth, Audubon had been passing through Philadelphia in 1830, and the rumor came from him. It began with a bet. In March 1830, Audubon met up with a fellow naturalist near Philadelphia, Richard Harlan. Harlan actually had a bad reputation. He was considered a scoundrel, but he and Audubon got along well enough. Together, they visited a zoo which had supposedly captured a bird of Washington. Harlan took one look and was convinced. But Audubon shook his head. He declared that it was simply an immature bald eagle. It would molt soon and acquire the familiar bald eagle plumage with a white head. Harlan said no way, so they wagered on the matter. And Audubon won. The bird soon molted into a normal bald eagle. Then they heard a rumor about another bird of Washington. This time it was in a taxidermy shop. Harlan and Audubon swung by. The specimen left Harlan glum. It looked just like the bird at the zoo, another immature bald eagle. But to Harlan's surprise, Audubon contradicted him. He said, "That's a bird of Washington if I ever saw one." Harlan was thrilled. They had found a specimen at last. In reality, Audubon was just being clever. He likely knew the bird was another immature bald eagle. But, being dead, it would never molt and prove him wrong. He also knew Harlan would gab and spread word about the discovery. And he was right. In fact, Harlan did such a good job gabbing that even Swainson in England heard the rumor. Unfortunately, Harlan did more than gab. After Audubon left town, Harlan bought the specimen from the taxidermy shop and deposited it with the museum in Philadelphia. Audubon must have cursed a blue streak. His idiot friend was going to ruin everything. All it would take was one naturalist stopping by to examine it, and he would be exposed. And one soon did. His old enemy, George Ord. Again, Ord had blackballed Audubon at the Academy of Sciences in Philadelphia. Ord had also published a rival book on North American birds, a book that Audubon's own book blew out of the water. Ord had every reason to resent Audubon. At the museum, Ord examined the taxidermied bird of Washington alongside two bona fide bald eagles. He found zero difference between them. Ord also compared the specimen to Audubon's painting. There, he found serious discrepancies. Ord saw that Audubon had stretched the lower bill too far in the painting. He had also made the skull too flat. For an artist of Audubon's caliber, Ord decided that these could not be simple mistakes. He said that Audubon's painting was, quote, calculated to mislead. Ord finally had it, ammunition to take down his enemy. So did he rush out and publish something? Shout his findings from the rooftops? No. Audubon was too famous, and Ord feared abuse from his legions of admirers if he said anything. As Ord grumbled in a letter, "I should have a swarm of hornets about my ears were I to proclaim to the world all that I know of this impudent pretender and his stupid book." Now, that sounds like sour grapes, but historically, Ord was right. The bird of Washington was a fraud. Audubon's surviving diaries make this clear. Recall that the Royal Society asked Audubon to write an essay about shooting the Washington eagle. He's vague on dates, but it seems to happen in 1819. Yet in a diary entry from 1820, Audubon admits he has no idea whether the eagle exists. He invented the whole anecdote. But because Ord stayed mum, the world never found out. As a result, Audubon's fame just kept growing.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video. This week, it's an AFC clash with the Baltimore Ravens when they meet the Miami Dolphins. To win the game, the Baltimore Ravens offensive line and the defensive line must step up, and the Dolphins, they've got speed for days and an offense that can flip the game in a heartbeat. Two totally different styles. One primetime stage. Who's going to set the tone in the AFC? Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party, TNF Tonight, presented by Verizon. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial. It's the Ravens and Dolphins, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
By the late 1800s, ornithologists knew that the bird of Washington did not exist. But Audubon was such a hero that his biographers made excuses. They claimed that he had simply made a mistake, or that the species had gone extinct. That their hero would lie never occurred to them. Audubon's painting of the bird has come under fire too. In 1996, an eagle-eyed historian noticed that Audubon's bird looked suspiciously like a portrait of a bald eagle published in an earlier encyclopedia. The birds had the same posture, perched on a rock, back to the viewer, wingtips crossed. They both even had the same glint in the upper left corner of their eyes. In other words, when Audubon told the Royal Society that he had a model back in America for his Bird of Washington painting, he did. It just wasn't a specimen. He had ripped off someone's art and passed it off as his own. Indeed, the more historians dig, the worse Audubon looks. His autobiography claimed that he hailed from New Orleans, an iconic American city. He did not. He was born in what's now Haiti, the illegitimate son of a sea captain and a maid. As for his childhood, he did spend it in France, but he never studied under any famous painters there, and he had fled France to avoid military service. To be fair, Audubon is certainly not the first person to cover up a lowly birth. But lying in a biography is one thing. Lying in science is another. Recall the experiments he just made up about banding the peewee flycatchers to see if they returned home to mate. And beyond the bird of Washington, there are 5 other species in birds of America that no biologist has ever seen. Some might be rare hybrids, but others he probably made up. As documented by historians, his rap sheet also includes stealing specimens from museums and ripping off other people's art on at least 6 occasions. Even one of the defining moments of the Audubon legend, getting rejected for membership at the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia, hinged on Audubon's deceptions. You see, biographers have long assumed that Audubon got blackballed there because of cranky, jealous George Ord, someone tearing down an intellectual superior. But that's not why Ord hated Audubon. Recall that Ord had a mentor, the ornithologist Alexander Wilson, who died of dysentery. Ord had completed Wilson's book on American birds, and by all accounts, Wilson was an upstanding gentleman, truly beloved. But when Audubon arrived in Philadelphia in 1824, seeking to get his book published, for some reason, he began bad-mouthing Wilson. Specifically, Audubon spread rumors that Wilson had stayed with him for 2 weeks in Louisville back in 1810. During that time, Wilson supposedly looked over new species that Audubon had collected. Wilson then published reports of them without Audubon's consent or any attribution that made Wilson a thief and a liar. In reality, Wilson had stayed in Louisville only 5 days in a hotel. According to Wilson's diary, he did look over Audubon's drawings one morning, then went hunting with him 2 days later. But he explicitly says they encountered no new species. It's not clear why Audubon claimed otherwise. Perhaps he wanted to puff himself up, or win over someone he assumed did not like Wilson. Regardless, the ploy backfired. George Ord heard Audubon's smears. As Wilson's protege, Ord had his diaries, and Ord produced them in public so people could read for themselves that Audubon was lying. That's why the Academy rejected Audubon's membership. And to be clear, so far I have been following the normal historical line on George Ord, that he was a nasty, grouchy curmudgeon. And he was. No one ever said he was kind-hearted. But he was a good scientist, and he was right not to trust John James Audubon. I could go on and on about Audubon's sins, and I have. I put together a bonus episode at patreon.com/disappearingspoon about another experiment that Audubon might have faked. You might have heard the supposed fact that birds cannot smell. That's not true. That canard started with Audubon, a pig carcass, and some vultures. I've also put together a second bonus at Patreon about Audubon tricking another naturalist into publishing about fake species. Audubon did so when the man tried to kill a bat with Audubon's favorite violin. So Audubon took revenge and humiliated him. All that and more at patreon.com/disappearingspoon. Audubon died in Manhattan in 1851, at age 65. He had no molars left and was beset with dementia. But his legend seemed secure and only grew in later decades. Charles Darwin cited him 3 times in On the Origin of Species. Multiple species of birds were named after him, as well as the Audubon Society, the world-famous conservation group. There are even cities named for him. In more recent times, he was the subject of a Google Doodle. And in December 2010, an original copy of Birds of America sold for $11.5 million. People continue to love him because he simply had an aura about him. The frontier genius with long hair and a wolfskin coat, a true American original. And we cannot forget the art. It is genuinely brilliant. It still moves people today. Because of that aura, biographers have twisted themselves inside out, explaining away all the discrepancies and lies that they have unearthed. They claim he had a romantic imagination, or a Mark Twain-like frontier sense of humor. One admirer claimed that Audubon had, quote, no genius for accuracy, which is a laughable euphemism. Only recently have historians seriously challenged his legacy and chipped away at his status. In addition to his scientific sins, there's increased scrutiny of his treatment of minorities. He often relied on Native Americans and Black people to collect specimens or provide information about birds and their behavior. He never credited them. He was hardly alone in that back then, but it doesn't reflect well. Worse, he exploited those people in other ways too. He robbed Native American graves from museum specimens. He also bought, sold, and enslaved Black people and disparaged the abolition movement as misguided. As more and more of his sins have come to light, a movement has arisen to strip Audubon of honorifics and rename everything Audubon related. In fact, dozens of local chapters of the Audubon Society have dropped Audubon's name in New York, Philadelphia, Tucson, Chicago. And as we'll hear next week, Audubon is not alone in coming under fire. Taxonomy is normally a sleepy field, but there are some nasty fights brewing over who we should and should not name species after. Audubon is just one of the many beloved names in the crosshairs. But as George Ord once said, in defending his mentor Wilson and turning the accusations back on Audubon, he who resorts to the stiletto can have no reason to complain should its point be reverted to his own chest. This is the Disappearing Spoon podcast, brought to you by the Science History Institute. Be sure to check out their in-depth science history podcast, Distillations. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts, or on their website, distillations.org. You can find more incredible stories in my books or at samkeen.com. You can also book me as a speaker there for your school or event. If you like this podcast, please spread the word and support it at patreon.com/disappearingspoon. You can also get bonus episodes and signed books at Patreon. This episode was written by me, Sam Keene. It was produced by Mariel Carr, Rigoberto Hernandez, and Sarah Kaplan. Our sound design, scoring, and mixing is by Row Home Productions. Row Home's creative director is Alex Lewis. John Myers is Row Home's executive producer. Thanks for listening.
Row Home Productions.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Do you know that the human brain only uses carbs and ketones for fuel? Or that we have 27 bones in each wrist and hand? I'm Dr. Steve Sullivan, professor of anatomy and physiology for 23 years, and if the human body interests you, listen to my podcast, Anatomy and Physiology Bit by Bit, rated the #1 A&P podcast on the internet. If you're an A&P student or just want to learn about the human body without all the misinformation from social media, this is the podcast for you. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts.